All right. Good evening, everybody. Just checking in for a second. Let me know if you can hear me okay, please. Just give me a thumbs up. All right. Thank you, Brian and Linda. Appreciate it. Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. Get this thing off. Okay. All right. So we'll join palms. And you can repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And keeping the palms joined. And you can put the palms down. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it on this Tuesday evening. I always like to start with a question just to give people some time to settle in, excuse me, before the meditation practice, and also an opportunity for people to communicate, share some thoughts. So the question I have for you today is, let's see. Well, let's keep it relatively simple, basic. How's your own? How's your home meditation practice going? Or what is your? Do you have a routine? Do you have a schedule? So, what's your schedule routine if you have one for your meditation at home? And how's it going? Yeah, so we'll go with that. I'll go ahead and type that in here. What is your home meditation schedule if you have one? And how is it going? And this question's pretty broad. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. You'll see a chat box somewhere on your screen. Feel free to chime in with your thoughts. As always, there's no right or wrong answers. These are not to be analyzed or judged or critiqued. It's just an opportunity to share. It's I think very difficult for a lot of people to discipline themselves to have a daily practice. So it's incredibly helpful to develop some sort of routine that includes time for meditation. So some of you, I know what your practice is like. Some of you, I have no idea. Some of you may be joining for the first time. But yeah, just I think exploring, if you have difficulty with the daily practice, what's blocking it? What's getting in your way? What's causing the challenge? So I think for me, it's been incredibly important, even if it's just 5 minutes. That's really what I preach constantly is a daily practice of 5 minutes. Of course, if you sit longer, that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong or bad with sitting longer. I just encourage people for 5 minutes because I think it's realistic, or more realistic, I should say, than telling yourself you're going to sit for 30 minutes every day. So if you tell yourself 5 minutes every day and you sit longer, then that's great. If you only sit for 5 minutes, then at least you've done your practice. So feel free to share. Let's see, Brian and Linda. Linda doing well. Brian needs to work on it. All right. Well, no time like the present, my friend, to work on it. Yeah, and I think it's, we have so many habits that we have created over the years, some of them good, some of them bad. So I think just becoming aware of them is important as well. Let's see, Lena, it's part of my morning routine. After exercising, I relax with meditation. I'll sometimes do an evening meditation as well. It's become a habit and I almost feel naked if I skip it in the morning. Yeah, I think it's, for me personally, I encourage people to do it in the morning. I think it's, again, seems to be more practical to just carve out a few minutes in the morning. Also, you're maybe less exhausted than having a long day and trying to come back to it at nighttime. It ends up being just something where you fall asleep. And it's good. I mean, that the habitual piece of it where, it's part of your routine. It's something you have to do. I think that's really, a great approach. So appreciate you sharing. Lena, again, let's see. What helps with the habit is having a dedicated space. Yeah. It's funny. I wasn't going to mention it, but since you said it, yeah, I've seen, the photo of your space from a couple pieces you picked up. So creating that space at home is really important. And you don't need a lot of space. You don't need a whole meditation hall. You don't need a whole room. I've seen, and college kids who create spaces sitting in a corner with a shoebox, um, upside down shoebox with a little statue on there or whatever is their sacred space. And I've seen kids sitting on a skateboard, a couple books on a skateboard. So, that's as basic as you can get. But just a little corner in your room anywhere is really all you need. If you can create a beautiful space, I agree. That's definitely helpful. Somewhere you walk by every day and it's very inviting. We have these huge machines, these TVs, and they invite us to sit down and turn them on and get lost in them for 5 hours at a time. Well, if we can create a similar space for meditation, I think it's very beneficial. So, Samir, I used to do 30 minutes twice a day, not anymore, completely broken. Thanks for the reminder. You're welcome. And again, if you used to do 30 minutes twice a day, let's be realistic and say, okay, I'm going to go back to doing 5 minutes twice a day or 5 minutes once a day. Just start there. Jim, I've started meditating in the mornings before going for a run. It's getting more consistent and I feel like I'm missing something if I don't do it. Yeah, great. Again, kind of like Lena, it just becomes habit. And if it's not happening, then, something's missing. Lisa, I don't have one really. I meditate on days when I join the temple sessions, but I want to establish it. And I'm starting to get back into running, so hope it will go hand in hand. Yeah, definitely. And sometimes, Lisa, it's as simple as just writing it down or putting a reminder in your phone. If you want to do it first thing in the morning, let's say you get up at 6 a.m., put 6:10 in your phone. You can do it right now, literally, like take out your phone, put 6:10, and set it, meditation, reminder, repeat, and for daily practice, 6:10 to 6:15. And that alarm will go off every morning. So you'll hear it, you'll see it, you'll know this is my time for meditation. Maybe you won't do it yet, but at some point in time, you may just start falling into that habit. So, try to set it up on your phone as a reminder, just like everything else we have reminders for, doctor's appointments or, I don't know, whatever you set a reminder for on your calendar. Any meetings, you have a calendar appointment set. So, Cynthia, morning, 5 a.m. alarm to sit with husband and meditate. Yeah, definitely. Just it's routine. It just becomes your way, and that's beautiful and very helpful. Denise, sitting outside in the morning, the birds keep me awake. Yeah, birds are great. The chirping of the birds, wonderful to sit with. Um, Lisa, yes, great idea. Thank you. Yeah, it really, I mean, I've been suggesting that idea for 10, 12 years. Like, take out your phone right now, literally put in 6 a.m., 6:05, 6:10, 9 a.m., whatever time it is, and just repeat. Done. Um, and that'll remind you. So, all right, anything else before we sit? Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with the meditation practice. So you can check this off as your time for the day if you have not done so already. Last thing I'll say, because I probably will forget to say it later, if you have a routine or you try to cultivate a routine and you skip it, don't be too critical, or don't be critical at all, really. If you set your alarm for meditation and you don't do it, don't judge yourself and think you're a terrible person. You just didn't do it, and that's okay. So, all right, so we'll start the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and breathe. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, help slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. I'll guide us as we begin, and we will settle into a little bit of silence. And most important with the practice, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply going to continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return to breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in, breathing out, follow breath out. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting. breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than anyone else who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. For most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all you're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, and focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. But meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. That's it. For me, I really do try to simplify this. And, when we look at the question I asked at the beginning, what's your practice like at home and how's it going? Which, I was nice to, well, what I'm getting at is I never want, or I never suggest people get into this place of judging or critiquing how their meditation practice is going. Really just exploring, are you sitting? And if not, then why not? Because once you're sitting, that's it. Right? We don't need to get into it's going, I'm doing it right, I'm doing it wrong, it's working, it's not working. If you sit and do a meditation practice day in and day out, it absolutely will benefit your life and the life of those around you. So the question is never about are you getting good at it? Or are you getting better at it? Or is it improving? Sitting and breathing is simply sitting and breathing. So it's not necessarily about improving that. It's more about consistently carving out the time and space to sit. So, all right, with that, I always prefer just to open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. So if you are joining us for the first time, again, welcome. Thanks for being here. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen there. Feel free to type a question and I will respond. So as always, I really prefer to just respond to what's on your mind and use that going forward. So questions, thoughts, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And Brian and Linda, glad you jumped back in. Not sure if it was me or you, but glad you're there. Questions? No questions. Phenomenal. Making it really easy on me. I appreciate it. Let's see. Samir, are there Buddhist monks that are married, have kids? I'm completely clueless on this subject. Um, so let me break it down this way. And the answer might surprise you in a way because, uh, well, let me kind of sum it up for you and then maybe some specifics. Um, the monastic tradition, Buddhist monks, Buddhist nuns, uh, going back to the time of the Buddha, right? He was a prince. For those of you who don't know, he was, son of a king, prince, left that life at 29 years old, roamed the base of the Himalayan mountains for 6 years. At 35, he sat down and had what they called the awakening, where he began to realize why we suffer. And he taught that for 45 years, and at 80, he died. But when he first left home at 29 years old, he became what's called a renunciate, and he renounced all worldly pleasures, worldly possessions, and he went from life as a prince, which you could imagine there was a lot. He had all the wealth, all the money, all the riches, all the jewels, all the women, everything he could imagine he had. And he gave that up for a life of a homeless wandering beggar with 7 items. He had a robe, he had a needle and thread to sew the robe, he had a blade to shave his head, he had a stone to sharpen the blade, he had a strainer, so when they went to get water, they could strain out the water, and begging bowl. So he had 7 items. And I start here to your question because it's important to understand that the practice of renunciation is not about being a monk or nun. It's about renouncing things, ways of life, ways of being. So that's another topic, but I just want to point that out here, Samir, that, someone who I know pretty well for a long time, you are married, you have kids. So you're not running off to become a monk, right? Even though some days you might want to. But there are ways in your life that you could practice renunciation on things that maybe you're attached to or addicted to or whatever it might be, and stay married and stay, a good father with the little kids, and your family will be much happier that way. So renunciation, which really became the monastic life of monks and nuns, the tradition is that you renounce the worldly pleasures that you would, in what's called the Vinaya, which is the code of conduct that the Buddhists set out. There were 227 to 315 or whatever it was, 306 actually, guidelines, rules that the Buddhists set up for the monks and nuns. And one of them was that they would not have any sort of physical contact. And so they lived a celibate life. So obviously having a family, marriage, those things were not part of monastic life, of being a monk or nun. Fast forward to today, and for the most part, most Buddhist traditions, if you are a Buddhist monk or a Buddhist nun, you do not marry, you do not have children. Now, a couple things to keep in mind here. The, say, Tibetan tradition, there are Tibetan lamas, right? They marry, they have families. They're not monks the way that the Buddha taught about being a monk or a nun, but they are lamas. And so they, in some Tibetan traditions, can marry and have children. The Japanese Buddhist tradition, for example, maybe 1,000 years ago, roughly in Japan, Buddhism was dying out. So they decided to allow the Japanese priests to marry and have kids so they could continue to transmit Buddhism through the children and continue to have the Buddhist temples. So, I have a friend of mine who runs the Berkeley, he's the head Zen priest at the Berkeley Zen Center, obviously in Berkeley, California. And he's a Zen priest, a wonderful Buddhist practitioner, married, and 3 or 4 kids. And, we were talking about Buddhism at this retreat a handful of years ago. And, how as a Zen priest, a big part of his practice is also making sure that they have enough toilet paper for the family. So, there are things that within Buddhism that are not so just like standard cut and dry rules. The other reason I kind of paused a little bit just in how to respond, because if you look specifically at your question, are there Buddhist monks that are married? Well, there are Buddhist monks and nuns that maybe were married and left that life to then renounce and become a monk or a nun. So the same thing would apply for, are there Buddhist monks or nuns that have kids? Absolutely. When I was in the monastery, I knew a handful of monks and nuns that had children early on in life. They had a traditional career and they had a family life. And for whatever reason, later on in life, they decided to give up that life and became a monk or nun. So traditionally, the idea when you become a monk or nun is that you are renouncing all of that and you're living a celibate life without those types of physical interactions and relationships. So hopefully that answers your question. And yes, I know you're stuck happy. I just had to, tease you at any chance I could get. So hopefully that helps. Brian and Linda, I was listening to a Dharma talk and he mentioned aggregates. Can you elaborate? What are they? Yes. So a very kind of foundational Buddhist teaching is what's called the 5 aggregates or 5 heaps. You'll often heard them referred to as well. And they are form, sensation, volition. Form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. So form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. Now, this is what's happening in every moment of our existence, is these 5 aggregates. So a simple example could be you have your hand and there's a flame, say the stove is on, and form is your hand. There's your physical form. You take your hand and you touch the flame. There's a sensation. That sensation is hot. This is hot. That's the sensation, right? That quickly turns into, and these things happen instant, like they're going on right now, immediately, at like rapid fire, so quickly. These 5 aggregates are happening. The form, the sensation, the perception now of the hand on the flame. The perception is this hurts. The volition, the action, which is to pull the hand away from the flame. And then the consciousness is the awareness of this entire situation. There's my hand, there's the flame, I touch it, it's hot, I pull it away, and I'm aware that all happened. So these 5 aggregates are going on every moment of our lives with everything, right? They're going on right now as we sit here, right? There's the form, there's us, right? Our physical bodies, there's these computers, these screens we're looking at. There is the sensation that you're having while you're sitting there. Maybe you're, and this again quickly goes into perception, but there's a sensation that is occurring. I feel pleasant, I feel unpleasant, I feel neutral, right? Buddha talked a lot about these sensations, these emotions that arise as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then there's the perception of it. There's the sensation of this occurrence. There's the perception of I like or dislike this. There's the volition, which is I'm going to continue watching, or I'm going to click and turn this off. And then there's the consciousness and the awareness of the entire event. So form, here we are, staring at these screens. Sensation, how does this make me feel? Do I feel pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Again, I'm repeating myself, but just to look at it again. Perception, how am I perceiving this? Well, I enjoy it, I don't enjoy it. It is satisfying to me, it is not satisfying to me. So our mind is now perceiving based on the sensation that is arising in us. Then there's the action that says, well, this is dumb, I don't like this, I don't like Jeff's black shirt. I'm going to turn this off and never come back. Or the volition is, I'm enjoying this, I'm learning something, I feel pleasant, and I'm going to continue on. And then there's your consciousness, the awareness of it all. So those are the 5 aggregates. And I think it helps to begin to recognize in each situation how they occur. The perception I find in my own practice and in my own way to be really the key determining factor. Form, again, this is just my own, very obviously all my own personal interpretations, but form, I can't really change it all that much. Sensation, a lot of that happens so quickly that there's a sensation that's arising, and then there's my perception. And this is where, to me, some of the decision-making factors come into play. And this is where we begin to recognize my perception of a situation. Is it beneficial? Is it harmful? Is it about, selfishness? Is it about practice of non-self and giving? What is my perception of the situation? Is it all about me, or is it about others? And that perception then leads to the actions you take. So if your perception is seen as close to the true nature of reality as possible and not ego-driven, then the action that follows will be a kinder, gentler action. And then the consciousness and awareness of that. So I hope that's helpful. You can begin to explore, how it plays out in your life and see what areas that really jump out to you, So, even coming back to, and you both know me by now, I like to pick on things, but even coming back to, the initial question and saying, okay, Linda's sitting, Brian, needs to work on it. So if you apply the 5 aggregates to the needing to work on a daily practice, there's the form, which is the physical body and a physical space of doing the meditation. And then if we look at what is stopping us, there's a sensation that arises. I don't want to do this now. I'm tired, or I'm busy, or I'm frustrated, or I'm not in a good mood. There are all these kind of sensations that arise immediately when we think about doing something. And then there's the perception of, well, if I don't feel good right now, if I'm busy, if I don't want to make the time for it, the perception of that moment of sitting and doing meditation is not going to be pleasant. And then the volition is, well, if I have these uneasy sensations about it, and my perception is I don't really feel like doing this right now, then the action, the volition is I'm not going to do it. So we begin to see very quickly how these aggregates play out in every single moment of our lives. Lots of fun. Anything else before we wrap up? Because that's a lot to sit with. One more question on that, or anything else? I just want to make this comment. For however it applies to the people who are with us tonight. I did a couple interviews the last couple days with one was actually a high school kid, but one high school and two college kids. And so they had a series of questions I had to ask about Buddhism. And two of the kids were from UCSD, different interview, but they had the exact same questions. And they were really big on determining, the differences in Buddhism, how it's practiced differently, and how, it's maybe how Buddhism is practiced in the United States versus, say, Japan or Thailand or Taiwan or wherever you might be. And my response always is that there's just what the Buddha taught. And then there is cultural influences and cultural practices and variations in the way that we go about sharing and studying and practicing what the Buddha taught. But the basic core tenets and teachings are the same. So does Buddhism differ from country to country? Well, yes, it's different in the way it's expressed and displayed and in the way it looks. And what brings us up is something like the five aggregates, right? The Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the five aggregates, any of these fundamental teachings, karma, dependent origination. The Buddha lived in India. He taught 2,500 years ago for 45 years, and he died at 80. And there's just that teaching. Now, yes, there's teachings that develop later, come out later, discovered later, shared later. And those are wonderful too. But the five aggregates, for example, or the Four Noble Truths, they don't, they're not different in America than they are in Japan or anywhere else for that matter. So we may integrate, we may learn, and we may practice them differently, but the Buddhist teachings are simply the Buddhist teachings. So, all right, with that, I think I'm going to close. We'll go ahead and join palms. We'll do a transfer of merit. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 14 years ago to share Buddhist teachings. Those of us who lead, we are not monks or nuns. We are not gurus or masters. We're not teachers. We're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best at taking our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on. We closed March 12, 2020, so we are, about 14 months or so with the temple closed. We have been able to move everything, obviously, for the last year or so virtually, which has been beautiful. We do look forward to hopefully opening again soon. Nothing is set yet, but it's nice to even be exploring and talking about and looking at the reality of opening again. So as I have any more information, I will share that with you. But I don't at this time. So we'll continue to stay cautious. We'll continue to encourage people to wear masks. We'll continue to encourage people to keep their distance. This pandemic is not gone. And people still die every day. So it's personally, I think, beautiful that people are getting vaccinated. I saw something today that said 50% of this country is vaccinated. And that's really beautiful. But the reality is that means 50% of this country is not. And so we need to be cautious and mindful and aware of that as well as we prepare and plan anything going forward. So Buddha for You also is closed. If you need anything, Buddha for You, you can go to the website there. Lots of good books or anything else you might need. So thanks all for being here. I wish you well, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.